JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created, James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com code podcast. That's JamesAllen.com code podcast.
You've discovered your link to GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat podcast. Now, here's your host, GoPowerCat.com publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to the PowerCat Questions podcast. A little bit late this week because Wednesday was signing day. And the irony of us doing this on Thursday afternoon is the fact that we are not going to discuss signing day. We'll have more podcast content about that later on. And of course, the incredible video show that Zach put together along with Ryan Wallace and Ryan Gilbert is available on the website, on our YouTube page. Make sure you check it out. A little more than an hour, including 6 player interviews. And we'll have some of those little samplings of it later on in our daily deliveries. But for now, that's our content on recruiting. But Ryan Wallace has something up his sleeve, and that will be coming a little bit later. This time, we're going to talk about basketball and the shutdown of football due to COVID concerns. No bowl game for the Wildcats. I think we all know how I feel about it. I kind of thought the players were probably sick and done with all the rules they have to follow. And even though supposedly they voted to play in a bowl game, I think they voted by going hog wild and getting COVID. We'll talk about all of that and so much more on this edition of the Questions Podcast. We're sponsored by The Fridge. Make sure you buy everyone in your family that's over 21 a gift from The Fridge for Christmas. They will love you. Unless they don't drink, then that's just kind of weird. You could get them like snacks. So that's something. Snacks are nice for Christmas. Tim Fitzgerald, that's me, Zach Carlson, and Ryan Gilbert. If you were guys were going to get a snack for Christmas, what snack would you choose? Hard-hitting stuff.
Like a candy?
It can be a candy, could be chips, could be cookies, Little Debbie cakes.
I'm always a Reese's guy on Christmas.
What the hell did you just say? Reese's?
Yep. I'm one of those.
One of these guys.
Those Americans that pronounces Reese's as Reese's.
Gilbert, do you want to pronounce this for us, please?
Reese's.
Okay.
How a normal person would say it.
I agree with you, but let's not call Zach weird, okay? We got to get through this podcast. We need him.
It doesn't bother me. Like, yeah, I'll call it Reese's Pieces. Like whatever. I don't care. I'm not here for this.
Gills, do you have an answer to the snack of choice?
Sugar cookie, a safe option.
Oh, you're a sugar cookie kind of guy.
Yeah.
Icing or no?
Nah.
Sugar, like sugar on top? That's the way my mom made them. Like she'd make sugar cookies and then there'd be like some sugar on top too, and they were really ultra sugary, and it's probably why I'm fat. Thanks, Mom.
Like crystallized sugar?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, so good. I had a high school buddy of mine, drop through his. He was on a campus tour with his daughter, who's going to come to K-State. Stopped by the house, and at first I didn't recognize him because he had a mask on. You know, I haven't seen you in a number of years, and then you guys show up at my door with a mask on, and okay, it took me a second, but he brought me a Sonic lemonade and a small carrot cake. Now, I think some of you here are aware of my love for carrot cake, and the reason why I always want to leave a little bit of room for dessert at Jack Stack. Nobody cares about all this. I do. Make sure you stop in the fridge when you're in town. And, of course, our segment sponsors are Tanner's Sports. They're up and running. Had Singo the other night. Singo and Wildcat basketball ended up being a victory for everyone. And, of course, the High-Low has gone holiday crazy. If you like a bar that looks like you're inside a Christmas gift filled with Santa's vomit, That isn't very good advertising now I think about it. But anyhow, there's a lot of Christmas stuff. It's really, really cool. I haven't seen it this year. I saw it last year. But if you like the Christmas pop-up bar idea, get into the high-low. Let's get rolling here. I've spoken too many words without answering questions from Wabash Station. Here is Gills.
First question of the Power Cat Questions podcast is from KNED. WTF, equal and opposite to last week's?
Oh, it's unbelievable. You know, I assume this is about basketball. It's absolutely shocking, but maybe it took one of the worst losses in school history to wake these guys up, to make them realize what you're doing ain't working. Maybe you should listen to your coaches and do what they're saying, and they did, and they got success. So hopefully that carries over. Guys, I've watched a lot of K-State basketball through the years. I've watched every game since Bruce Weber's become coach. I can't think of one I would have missed. That was one of the more focused efforts from wire to wire in the regular season. I need to say that, in the regular season, because they had strung those together in their Elite Eight run. They had 3 of those in a row. And they do that in Kansas City on occasion. Wire to wire focus from a team that I've seen from a Bruce Weber team, and this one is a bunch of fighting fetuses. They're so young, they don't know what they're doing, and if they can form that habit of playing at that level, it's very promising. Iowa State wasn't very good, but to the players' credit, they took advantage of that. They hit their free throws. Dejuan Gordon was incredible from the free throw line. He was incredible from everywhere but beyond the three-point arc. Davian Bradford continues to get better and better and better. And they won this game even though Nigel Pack struggled and even though Mike McGurl struggled a little bit and Mike McGurl fouled out. It was really, really impressive. Now, it looks like they're going to play Saturday. Looks like they'll get their game in with Baylor, and they'll probably get their feelings hurt. But I think that's a perfect follow-up to beating Iowa State. Okay, you beat a like program that is also kind of in a rebuild mode. They were supposed to be better than you, but you won on their home floor. Congratulations. Play the number 2 team in the country and understand how good this conference is. Go. I mean, that's basically what they're going to do, and I'm all in on it at this point.
Next question from Yo Mama. First of all, Yo Mama, good to hear that you're doing well after your health scare there.
I'm wondering, did you think when he had his heart attack, he yelled, Yo Mama? Like, I don't know. Hey, Yo Mama, if you're listening to this, were you like Fred Sanford, like backing up, holding your chest? Oh, never mind. The young guys didn't get that reference at all, but I hope you're doing okay.
No. Right over my head. From Yo Mama, it was a silver lining of the Fort Hays State loss that it showed the young guys the importance of playing Bruce's defense.
I would think so. I mean, they still aren't defending the way Bruce wants it done, but they're beginning to try to do it. Does that make sense? I mean, they still have some lapses. Davian Bradford has a lot to learn about post defense, positioning, those kind of things. But I think the buy-in's there now. That's probably the most disturbing thing that came out of that Fort Hays game, was to find out the young guys weren't listening. They weren't buying in. They were, Bruce Weber even brought it up, the drama they had for 2 weeks. We still don't know what the drama was about. Maybe they're fighting over the change in The Bachelorette. I don't know. We'll have to consult Riley Gates on that one. But, they said they got the drama behind them. They got focused in practice. And if this team learns to defend, I mean, they're going to be really good. They're offensively, they have more skill than I saw from previous teams. Certainly from last year. They looked more skilled offensively than any point last year. Stunning. Really stunning, although last year's team sucked. It was dysfunctional. But when we told people that, we were haters.
I think I agree with that, the defense, them losing to Fort Hays State, made them kind of realize. But I think it's more than just defense. I think it's just the whole team and just, the whole game or playing of the game. I think it knocked them down to 0. And, hey, it's a fresh page. We can only go up from here. And, part of me thinks if they beat Fort Hays State, they don't, have that wake-up call, that fresh page against Iowa State. And I think they probably lose the game. So, yeah, I think that the Fort Hays State game kind of served as kind of a reset to the early struggles. And I think it marked the turning of a page here for this team, and hopefully they're able to build. I know Baylor's going to be tough on Saturday. It looks like the game's going to get played, but this is, they've turned the page. They've started to grow. Now they get their toughest test of the year at home, probably. So, it'll be interesting to see how they continue to build off of that loss and what they did to turn the page.
I don't want to take anything away from what K-State did because it was a really good performance, but a big part of this game was Iowa State. Think if you're the Cyclones, you're going up against a team who just lost to Fort Hays State a week ago. I doubt that they were fully prepared, fully engaged, and I think they might have had the same issues that K-State probably dealt with when they were playing Fort Hays State. Oh, we're not going to lose to these guys. They're terrible. So, I don't want to try to take anything away from what K-State did because that was really one of the better games that I've seen in recent memory. It was like, are they going to – I know they kind of let off the gas a little bit to start off the second half, but, they kind of set the tone early and, Carlton Lingard shooting threes and, acrobatic and ones from Dejuan. It was just overall, man, a really good performance. So on both sides, defensively and offensively, but that offense, man, if they can continue to do that, Dejuan can continue to learn his role on the team. What was he 0 for 4, I think, from beyond the arc again. So it's frustrating to see that, but we definitely saw his strengths, and that's getting to the basket, 11 free throws for Dejuan in that game. So that's what you got to do sometimes. Dejuan is, I could compare him to like Andrew Wiggins. Like he always drove me crazy, the attention he got. And half of his points, I feel like, came from the free throw line. Give him credit for drawing those fouls and stuff, but it's just small ball. And that's what Dejuan's got to do. So he's going to have to shut down some of those haters out there, telling him to do better. And I think that, like you said, Fitz, we're not haters, but, when you're not performing well, you've got to be better at a D1 level. And you're one of the best, prospects out of a really talented Chicago area. So, overall, things came together. I honestly, not to brag, but I saw it coming. I mean, this team wasn't going to play like they played against Fort Hays State all year long. They were going to get it together. Did I expect them to win it by 10, 11 points? No, but I knew they'd be competitive. Iowa State's not the best team like we talked about, but overall, man, I was talking with Austin Budke. He said that this offense was the same level as, the Elite Eight team from a few years back. So hopefully K-State can keep it going. But obviously, like you said, Fitz, it's, you got to keep going and not look back. And you've got to prepare for Baylor, which, like you said, has got the green light to be played. So I'm excited about this team.
I got to tell you, to have someone that can legitimately pick, roll, and dunk, all fluid, all athletically done, is a huge plus for this program. Davion Bradford changes how everyone has to defend Kansas State now. And by putting the 4 guards out there, which is intriguing to me because they went out and did a great job of getting big men. I like all 3 big men they have. I think Bradford's clearly the best, but Iziagu is a banger. He's like a big Mauine. He's not as athletically gifted as Bradford maybe, but there's something about him I like. I think Bradford's by far the better player, and I think when Casey gets back, Bradford should still be in the starting lineup. And Carlton Lingard, where the hell that come from? I mean, I think Bruce was even a little surprised about it because he's talked about how little he's played because of the pandemic and illness and injury. And he steps out there and strokes a couple threes. And guys, those weren't prayers that went in. Those are good-looking shots. That is a really fundamentally sound shot. And when they recruited him that he can slide to the 4, I'm like, 6'11" and skinny at the 4. Yeah, he probably could. If they take for West Virginia, for example, that can go really big. If they can put him at the 4 and he can learn to defend and step out, I feel a lot better about things. There's going to be some teams that are going to be tough to defend with a 4-guard lineup. But then again, do you want to go to the 4-guard and put Selton Miguel on a big man and say, Selton, just front him, frustrate him, whatever, and make him guard you, because Selton Miguel is a B.I. you-know-what to guard. That kid can get to the rim. He can break you down. Does he need to refine his game? Yes. Does he need to kind of slow down? No. I think he needs to just get used to going that speed. He's a little bit out of control at times, but I think that's because he's going faster than his fundamentals will allow him to go. And the fundamentals will catch up. He has a lot of ball handling he must do. But this kid has a thing to his game you can't teach, and that is he gets after it. I love this group of freshmen. I absolutely for all I've complained about this program through the years, this is my favorite group of players, except for the Magruder group that he inherited, J.O. and those guys. This is my favorite group that he's had. Not only because they're great players, but every time we've dealt with them in media opportunities, they're great to deal with. Davion was fantastic in the post-game press conference. I love how he said at the end, guys, I got to go because I got a flight to catch. And I'm like, well, everyone's on your flight. They're not leaving without you, Davion. We still have to talk to Coach Weber, and he'll be on that flight too. But they're all Pack and Bradford. They've been great kids, and I can't wait for Luke, however you pronounce his name. Well, I really should look that up. I really should. Kazupki?
I'm confident that I'm right on that.
Okay. Luke K. I'm excited to see him because God knows I love a sniper that can get out there and shoot. Change a game that way too. That if you got a big man and a sniper on the floor, good luck.
One thing with Davion, I mean, if you're a K-State fan, when are you going to get concerned and say, is he going to be here for 4 years? I mean, if he continues to, get better and just develop, I mean, he's got a good chance to go pro. He has that it factor. Like you said, you can lob it up to him and not get nervous. Like with Mayween, oh boy, what the hell is he going to do this time? So.
I know.
But what was that game? Was it the OU game or West Virginia game on the road where he missed like 4 dunks in a row? You guys remember that?
It was the kind of consistency that Bill Snyder always spoke of. He kept missing dunks, but it was very consistent. Yeah, it was awful. It was awful. I've never had the yips dunking the ball. I'm going to leave out the fact that I've never really dunked the ball, but I didn't know it was possible to get the yips dunking a ball. It's like getting the yips with 2-inch putts, Zach.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on.
Next question is from Thundercat. How shocked are you that Pack and McGurl went 5 of 20 from the field and 1 of 12 from 3, and we scored 74 points on the road and won?
Crazy.
Yeah, I think it's shocking. But at the same time, it should be reassuring that those two guys can play that bad and the rest of the team can still score 74 points and win on the road in the Big 12. It's shocking, but, hopefully it means good things and that maybe this team's a little bit deeper than what they have been the last, to start the season.
They played 8 guys in Ames. The 3 guys off the bench, Rudy Williams, Carlton Lingard, and Antonio Gordon, went a collective 8 of 9 from the field. Lingard was 4 of 4, including the 2 threes. Rudy Williams was 3 of 4, and Antonio took 1 shot and made it. So they just got things from off the bench that they really needed. And of course, Bradford was 5 of 7 because he's just out there crapping on people. Just dunking left and right. And Dejuan Gordon led the team with 15 points, but 11 of those were at the free throw line. He was 2 of 8 from the field and 0 for 4 from three-point range. The fact he was 2 for 4 from inside the circle, I hope he kind of defines his game a little bit better. The bad news is in the postgame, he says he's going to keep shooting the long shot, and it sounds like he's got the green light from Weber. He must be making them in practice is my only, because you don't take it into a game until you're confident it can go in. So he must be more successful than we're seeing. But the shot isn't ready. It's kind of like my modeling career. I'm not going to roll it out until I'm really ready.
The word I would use is probably telling. Shows you how deep this team is. And, it's kind of cliche to say this whole thing, but on any given night, anyone can go off. And I think that's true for this team. Carlton's not healthy. I mean, he's only practiced, I think, 3 or 4 times ever at K-State. So, he's only going to get better. Of course, it goes without saying all the freshmen are only going to get better. So it's just telling, the fact that McGuirl and Pack had an off night and they still won by double digits on the road in the Big 12.
Yep.
Next question is from Files. How many conference wins should Bruce have to get in order to justify retaining him as coach? Depending on health, team improvement, etc., I would say 6 wins minimum.
I think them winning at Iowa State this week has pretty much assured that you will be kept around. I would say if he went 0-18, like I said last year, if he goes 0-18, yeah, I think you get rid of him regardless of pandemic or whatever. But they're 1-0 and they're in first place in the Big 12 right now. So
shut it down.
Yeah.
The thing is, we can put a number on that. Files, you can put a number on that. But I think short of a total collapse and chaos of this group, like they just stop playing, I mean, it just is awful, it's not going to happen. He's clearly got the endorsement to continue building with this group. And if they go and win some more games like this, and they're at least competitive, look, I don't think they're going to win Saturday. But if they don't back down, even if they lose by 15 points, and they scrap and fight from beginning to end, that's what I want to see from this group. They've got to learn their lessons. They got to grow up. They got to get bigger, stronger, better shooting. Everything about their games have to improve, and that'll come over time. And I think what we know about Gene Taylor is Bruce has that time, and barring a complete collapse and anarchy in that program, he's going to have next year for sure.
Next question from KNED. Remote commentators were already a thing, accelerated by COVID. If ESPN wants to show all these games across their platform and save travel money too, why don't they ditch the fifth-string announcers and work with schools to supply them instead? Wouldn't the broadcasts be better with announcers who know the teams?
Well, I mean, that's a double-edged sword. If you go with home announcers, are they going to piss off the road team? I mean, trying to get an announcer be fair like that, it'd be really kind of difficult and hard for them to do. I mean, they will just by circumstance know a lot more about the home team than the visiting team. I see what you're saying. I hope everyone got to see I think it was on Instagram, maybe on Twitter, of Kevin Harlan in his basement calling NBA games. His daughter put it up, who's an NFL sideline person too. But there he is in his basement, and as someone said, let me get this right. CBS has all this money and all this technology, and he's using a pop-up backdrop like a kid doing TikTok videos from his basement. I mean, it's crazy. He's just got a desk set up with all of his equipment, his computers, and then one of those pop-up backgrounds that you take to a convention as his backdrop. But it's Kevin Harlan. It sounds great. But people said there was like a 3-second delay between the video and the audio, and that's what everyone's got to address. That's the issue right now. I mean, why don't they have that synced up better? And if they're going to do this in the future, you better be running high-speed internet to everyone. That, you better have fiber in everyone's building, house, apartment, wherever they're doing it from. If you're going to have professional talent doing this from remote, from home, from wherever, then they have to be equipped from top to bottom. But, yeah, I think it's going to happen a lot more. Interesting that Ben Lieber and his partner, who I think works for the Charlotte, Carolina Panthers. Jeez, I just had a total block. Ben would fly to Charlotte and do the games in person with his play-by-play guy, but they would do him remotely from Charlotte. So he was on his home turf, and then he was around for the Panthers games. I don't know what his role is, but that I think we're going to see a lot more of. Just, doing. I thought it was interesting that Gene Taylor said he thinks a lot more recruiting will be done over Zoom in the future, less traveling. That'll be a place where everyone saves money. You won't just go out all the time to see kids in person just to drop in their house. You'll just do it by Zoom. Now, I don't know if I'm a big fan of that. I mean, I'm all for that. I'll be blunt here. I'm for that in non-revenue producing sports. But for football, I probably need to get in front of the recruits, and I think that will continue.
I mean, remember the coaching search. Gene came out and said, yeah, Chris Klieman wasn't flying in. We talked to him on Zoom. You know, we did it over video chat. So, I mean, even stuff like that, you know, universities and, you know, other things they've decided, hey, we can reduce this cost. We can just do it over the phone or do it over video call, and it's just as good. And I think what it comes down to as far as broadcasting is, if you're a good announcer, it shouldn't matter where you're at, because, I mean, if you saw Kevin Harlan's setup for when he does TNT, he's got so many monitors around him. You know, he has all of the info right there that he needs and would have in front of him at the game. And for the most part, these guys aren't necessarily watching the game in person as it happens. They're still watching on a screen, even though they're there. You know, yes, being there allows them to kind of pick up on some things, you know, as far as the atmosphere and where the cameras might not be pointing. But for the most part, they're still looking at monitors. And, you know, there's still very little, I guess, that they need to do their job, I guess. You're just picking up atmosphere and then the occasional, you know, thing that's completely off camera that you're not going to be able to see that needs to be described.
You know, I think that's the next step is they will have to have like remote cameras set up. Just, I don't know, where they can see things we can't. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but to get back to the question, absolutely this is going to happen more and more. Because now they've kind of been pushed to figure out the technology, and I think they will continue down that path to figure out ways to do it most efficiently.
Last question of the first half from Dr. J54. Do we have any insight into who might be signed for the 21-22 basketball season? I assume that somehow we'll have 2 or 3 open spots.
You know, before I turn this back over to you, Gills, you know, Bruce Weber brought this up, that the basketball players can get a season too. I wasn't fully aware of that, but I think that Mike McGuirl can come back next year as a senior. So that adds a little layer of confusion to what they have. He's the only senior. They have one open scholarship, so they have that one. And they have one senior, but he might come back. So they may only have one scholarship. Now, Dr. J, you're exactly right. We know that from football. I mean, there's just going to be tons of guys that come and go now at, you know, regular intervals. If I had to guess, the guys that'll come and go off this program would be the sophomores. I don't think Dejuan, but I continue to be concerned about Montavious Murphy's knees. I know Bruce said he might be back soon. I just got a bad feeling about it. I have nothing to back that up. I just have a bad feeling that this is something chronic. But yeah, I think at most they're going to have 3, but, you know, probably 2 open scholarships. So now I'll turn it over to Gills to try to tell us who might be filling those openings.
Well, yeah, first of all, you bring up a good point with McGuirl and stuff. I was updating the scholarship distribution chart a few, you know, probably a week ago, and it's going to be weird no matter what happens with McGuirl and stuff. But so that's something to keep in mind. But, you know, we've got Logan Landers who signed a few months, I guess, about a month or 2 back. So I think Logan's a really good foundation, not just because he's a 6'10" poster, however tall he is, but, you know, he's a good, you know, a base for the class. So I think no matter what happens here, you know, I think that I don't want to say Logan's going to take a back seat to this freshman class, but, you know, I think that this freshman class is very strong as is. So honestly, I don't know how much turnover it would cause in a few years if you loaded up this class as well. So, you know, Kyle Cuff Jr. is, to answer the question, though, a name that he's going to be announcing on Saturday. K-State, KU, St. John's, and I believe Georgia are the final 4 schools. I've heard KU is the front runner. I don't have any. I don't know for sure, though. I just got off the phone with him literally right before we were about to hit record on this podcast. And then I said, oh, wait, I got to make a phone call. So good kid. You know, he had great things to say. He's up from New Jersey. So he has a great connection there with Shane Southwell. He says he's been talking with him a lot. But, he was pretty, spoke highly of every school, didn't hint at too much, but based off of what I've heard from our national guys and stuff, that KU is probably the front runner. But nothing is official. So if there is one guy to sign, he's a good one to keep an eye on. Right now, he's a 2022 target, but he has the option to reclassify to 21. I don't know if he'll do that, but certainly keep an eye on him. And then, as we've talked about, a ton here on Go Power Cat, Aminu Muhammad, he'll be deciding next week. K-State's also in his final list of schools. However, Georgia, I think, is the favorite based off of what I've heard. I've been talking a lot with his guardian, Sean Harmon. He's, been very helpful, but also it's tough to get a read. It's a pretty level field from what I've heard, but still Georgia's the favorite with him. So I would say that if K-State doesn't get either of those two, Wesley Cardette and AJ Neal out from West Oaks Academy in Florida, that's of course where Selton Miguel played. So those are two guys to keep an eye on. I think that Cardette's stock is a little bit higher than Neal's, but both of those guys, keep an eye on them. Maximus Edwards, I would keep an eye on him as well. Other than that, though, it's really just kind of slow right now, because I think it's pretty clear that K-State put a lot of effort and energy, with Cuff and Muhammad, and I don't think they're going to get either of them. But we'll keep an eye on. Of course, we'll keep you updated on Go Power Cat. But it's kind of, we might see someone slip out of nowhere, and same thing that happened with Siri Lewis last spring. I think he got offered in March or April, and then committed a week later because he was kind of just trying to take the best he could get. I would say, Antonio came late, so we might see some of those guys, but I wouldn't panic. I think that Logan Landers is 100%, a really good kid that you want on your team, and he's going to be a good, solid foundation for this class.
Very good. That's the first half of the Power Cat Questions podcast, brought to you by Frid's Wholesale Liquor. On the other side, we will turn our attention to football, I think. I'm not sure. Who knows? I'm just along for the ride.
The Power Cat Podcast will be right back.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
Life as a parent is nonstop. I'm so focused on keeping my family healthy that I barely have time to take care of myself. If this sounds like you, then you need to give Symbiotica a try. Symbiotica is a health and wellness company that empowers individuals to take ownership of their health with high-quality formulas and supplements crafted to boost energy, immunity, gut health, and more. Symbiotica's supplements are made with clean, natural ingredients, and they don't contain any toxins or artificial ingredients. Because they were designed for us, busy parents. They're quick and easy to take. Just a daily dose for your energy, immune system, and overall well-being. It's made staying consistent so much easier. And the best part? Symbiotica is having their holiday sale, so now's the perfect time to put your health in the driver's seat. Head to Symbiotica.com for 20% off with code GIFT20. That's CYMBIOTIKA.com with code GIFT20 for 20% off. Your health transformation journey starts now. Symbiotica Natural and Organic Supplements.
We now send it back to the PowerCat podcast.
Welcome back to the PowerCat Questions podcast, brought to you by The Fridge and our good friends at Tanner's and the High-Low. Make sure you stop by all of their places when you are in town, because it's hard to do when you're not in town. Tim Fitzgerald, Ryan Gilbert, Zach Carlson, your normal podcasting group. If you want to use the word normal, maybe you don't. Like your regular one, not even that one's particularly accurate. Anyhow, we appreciate you listening. We hope you saw the incredible show that Zach Carlson put together from recruiting, with interviews from Gills and Ryan Wallace, and it's good stuff. More recruiting coverage will be coming on video and podcasting in the near future, but this one is about basketball and football and not recruiting, and I believe we're about to turn our attention to football. I'm not sure. Gills, speak.
First question of the second half is about football. It's from Campy3507. I know this is a hard question to answer, but play it out for me. Where do you honestly see this football team in 3 to 4 years? Is Chris putting us in a position to be a top 4 team in the conference every year and competing for Big 12 championships every third year? Or are we consistently running in the middle of the pack?
I believe he's on track to do exactly that. This has been year 2 during a pandemic, and a lot of you are overreacting to what you saw. They had a lot of opt-outs / quitting players, weird stuff going on in the locker room. And honestly, some of it was from their own players. Some of the guys they had recruited in that late period of his first class seemed to have gone off the rails. He just signed his 3rd class. I mean, for heaven's sakes. Let's give him, as long as a coach isn't completely tanking, you have to give them at least 5 years before you really know what's going to happen. 4 if you're impatient. 3 if they're awful and you can tell it doesn't matter what players he has, this ain't working. Well, that's not true. This was essentially a 6-win season because they probably would have won their other 2 games. I'm not going to sit here and say that if they'd played their original schedule, they would have won all 3 non-conference games by not playing Arkansas State, because I think Buffalo's a lot better than Arkansas State. And Buffalo's about to win the MAC championship this weekend. So I'm not going to go there, but they would have won 6 games. They would have gone with 2 more wins in that non-conference. They would have beaten Vanderbilt. Hell yeah, they would have beaten Vanderbilt. It was just a weird season, a bizarre season. And I know you can say everyone went through it, but everyone had different circumstances of how they've gone through the pandemic. Would K-State have been better off if they had not played that Iowa State game when they played up there so shorthanded? Well, they would have finished 4-4 in the conference. They wouldn't have had an embarrassing loss. If they just cowered and not played the game, like what we saw with Oklahoma, West Virginia, that was rescheduled and then postponed, then canceled. And it just, they just didn't want to play that game. So thus, West Virginia finishes ahead of K-State in the standings because they didn't play Oklahoma and went 4-4. Just, it's okay, folks. Next year, if they keep sliding, next year, if they win 3 in the Big 12, I will join you in being concerned. But I think it's going to be okay. So back to the question. I do believe if given enough time, Kansas State will be competing for Big 12 championships. As you mentioned, can they do it on the regular against the Oklahomas and possibly Texas if they ever hire a coach that can figure out how to win at Texas? I don't know how that's not possible. But they will be competing. Does he need to maybe tweak his coaching staff? Yeah, I'm fine. We'll see what happens. But I truly believe in Chris Klieman and this coaching staff. I really do. They're quality people. They've upped the recruiting game. And Gills, I think you can attest to this. In talking to some of these recruits, these are really impressive young men. Yep. Really good. I mean, I didn't have – I'm going to brag here. I was class president. I didn't have my stuff together like these guys do. They've got it figured out a little bit. It's refreshing. I mean, Snyder recruits did too, don't get me wrong, but these guys take Crew Jackson. Man, I mean, this kid, we're talking about, what is he? Let me pull it up here. 6. Oh, come here, paper. Crew Jackson is 6'5" as a linebacker. He'll probably play at 230. You know, he's at 200 now. They'll probably get him 220, 230. Folks, that's NFL measurements. Man, that's big time stuff. And boy, is he impressive to speak with. So they're upping the recruiting game in Manhattan, Kansas, but that doesn't happen overnight. And then you get hit with a pandemic. This should have been more of a breakthrough season in recruiting. Oh, but you can't go visit anyone, and they can't come here, and you're in the middle of a remote state with limited amount of Division I recruits. So I'm going to give him some time here. Because when they get back out on the road, I think they're going to continue to tear it up. I feel good about the program. I know the ending sucked. It really did. But I truly believe this group was exhausted from all it had to do to stay on the field. And I also truly believe other programs did not adhere to contact tracing the way Kansas State did. I can't prove it, but I sure didn't see as many programs losing players due to contact tracing as they did K-State. And I can't believe it's just because they're better at it or they adhere to the rules. I don't believe that. This group was done mentally.
Yeah. The team just ran out of gas. I mean, that's really the only explanation. You know, they just kind of fell off, and by the end of the season, especially that Texas game, it's just they were done. And I don't blame them for not going to a bowl game or not trying to go to a bowl game. You know, I get that, you know, COVID's keeping them out, but, you know, it's convenient for them to just say, yeah, let's shut it down. You know, we had the season. We're glad we played. Let's move on from what this was. But, you know, Fitz, you said, you know, if they slide next year, you know, you might get concerned. If they slide next year, for me, I don't care. This year was a giant roadblock, and it made the team, if we're going to call it a roadblock, it made them turn around and find a different route. So the route, you know, this coaching staff, this team, they're now on a different road, and they have to reset a little bit. And I think that expectations should reset a little bit. I know before this season we said that this team, they probably weren't going to be as good as last year. You know, last year they probably overperformed a little bit, and you probably hoped that they'd be able to, you know, improve on that. But with, you know, the players they had and the players that Snyder recruited at the end of his tenure, it wasn't going to be enough to get it done in the Big 12. And this year was going to be a down year. So at 4-6 in a 10-game season, did we really miss expectations? You know, I would say that this team goes 6-6 at least. Is that really outside of what we were expecting before the games got canceled, before the season changed? Because really, that's where we're at with this team. And I think that K-State's going to have to, you know, the pandemic and, you know, all of the issues on and off the field, you know, players transferring, players quitting, opting out, whatever, not coming back. You know, there's, you know, issues that you can chalk up to the pandemic, you know, elsewhere that, you know, they're going to have to overcome. But it's not like, you know, this is the end of the world. And I think that Chris Klieman is owed another year of just, hey, let's calm down. Let's stay cool. Keep a level head. You know, they're going to get better, but we're not building right now. It's about 3 years from now, kind of like this question is asking. And I think, yes, in 3 years, this team, you know, every third year, like you mentioned, Campy, I think that this team can compete for a conference championship.
Gills, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if I have much of an opinion one way or another, to be quite honest. Yeah. I agree with both of you. Can I keep you both happy?
That's good butt kissing. Look, I think the only criticism I have, and I'm sorry if this offends some of you because there's too many people in the world that are so easily offended now. Fans' expectations were out of alignment. I mean, I saw people thinking 10 wins in the regular season before all this happened, before everything went down. I mean, I thought they would go 5-4 in the conference and win all 3 of their non-conference games. I did think 8 wins was what I was looking at. And I knew I was being optimistic, but I heard people talking about contending for the Big 12 championship game and, winning 10 games and that kind of stuff. I'm like, what? Well, no, this is year 2. And then the pandemic hits, and that just shuffled everything. I think the Big 12 learned a lesson. If there's a possible pandemic on the horizon, don't schedule a bunch of teams that got in spring football. That was their miscalculation. I'm really honest about that. Yeah. That put them, the Sun Belt, way ahead of everyone else at the season's beginning. And you look at a program like Coastal Carolina that was picked for last in its division. Well, they converted it into an entire season, a juggernaut season for Coastal Carolina. And I'm actually intrigued to watch Louisiana, Coastal Carolina Sun Belt Championship. I've really learned to like Sun Belt football. Those are good teams. Everyone talks about Louisiana's coach being a candidate for jobs. He's not even favored in his title game because Coastal's been so dominant this year and then added the win over BYU, the game, and then they won it. All impressive. Folks, you got to get – you can't judge by your own hopes and dreams. Would I like them to be 10 wins next season? Well, sure. But because they only get 7 or 6, that doesn't mean it's a failure. It fell short of my thoughts. Look, just give them some more time. There's too much impatience. My God, 2 years in, an overall winning record, right? 11-10 overall. No, 11-11, right? Because of the bowl game. Is that right? But still,
12-11.
12-11,
right?
I'm struggling.
13 games and 10 games, 23 games total. They went 8-5 and 4-6. 12-11.
Okay. Just calm down. It's going to be okay. Get to me after year 4 and let's discuss this. Unless they offer next year. Unless it's a total collapse and it's clear that something went horribly, horribly wrong. Talk to me after year 4 and I'll entertain better discussion. But you're right. The question is spot on. We do need to wait a lot longer before we know if they can indeed contend for a title game every 3 years or so and be up in the discussion every year. To do that takes full cycles of recruiting. I mean, not inheriting half a class and adding to another class and then kind of adopting short-term recruiting in year 2. This was the first year in which they could really, really push full on. And they lost most of their momentum due to a pandemic. They couldn't bring kids in because what have we learned over and over and over from recruiting at Kansas State? Everything is better when you get them on campus. They think they know what Kansas State is, and they're wrong, and they quickly discover it. Patience.
See, one final thing to add. I think as long as Scott Frost is the coach at Nebraska and he's putting up similar or worse results than Chris Klieman is at K-State, I think that, and with Nebraska fans and what their expectations are, and if Scott Frost is still allowed to coach at Nebraska, I think that Chris Klieman can coach at K-State. I think that's a good measuring stick here for K-State fans' expectations.
Very good.
Next question from Campy again. Let's talk about the college football playoff. In 2014, I was happy that it finally moved to a playoff format, but 6 years later, I feel it's causing even more problems than the BCS ever did. I won't go into all the reasons why, but I'll never understand how a college football team can start a season without ever having a chance to win a championship. They expanded the playoff to 8 teams. Imagine how many teams would still have a chance to be a part of it, late in the season. Ratings for games would go up, and teams like K-State wouldn't feel so left out of the blue blood conversation. What say you?
I wish the BCS was back this year.
Yeah.
I hate the committee. The committee sucks. The committee is just like, it's just all eye test. Oh, they're a blue blood. They're a blue blood. Oh, and granted, Alabama and Clemson, every year they win their games. They deserve to be there. And I think that's half of it, and why it's so frustrating is that 2 of the 4 slots you can guarantee to 2 teams. And, your playoff isn't going to change much each year. Outside of the first playoff, I think there's been most years, there's only 1 new team that has never been in the playoff. So that's frustrating. Yeah, it's frustrating that there's 4 teams too. It should be 8. It should have always been 8. But now you've got teams like Cincinnati and Coastal Carolina who are undefeated, and they will not have a chance. Whether you think they deserve it or not is another story. But should they be in the top 8? Probably. I mean, especially in a season like this where Ohio State's played 5 games. And they're one of the 4 best teams. So they get rewarded for not playing. But teams like Cincinnati and Coastal Carolina they don't get rewarded for actually going out and playing games. Now they have to sit around to wait for all these other extra games late in the season. The committee should have came out months ago and said, hey, if you want to be a championship rated team, if you want to be qualified for a championship, you need to play X number of games. And it should have been at least 8, not 6, like Ohio State's going to play. I hope they get pounded by Alabama in the playoffs. They don't deserve to be there.
They don't at all.
And I know I will defend UCF for what they went through in their undefeated season. I love that they called them national champions. But this is even worse for me for Cincinnati. If Cincinnati goes undefeated this year, they're more of a national champion than Ohio State could be. More of a national champion than UCF calls themselves. That's for sure. If I'm Cincinnati and Coastal Carolina, I'm turning down any bowl invites, and we're playing our own bowl game. We're going to call it the national championship. We're going to make a trophy. We're going to get a sponsor, and we're going to put it on a network that isn't ESPN.
I agree.
NBC seems like the great network that could say, hey, I know they got Notre Dame, but hey, some network that's unaffiliated with the BS that this college football playoff this year has been, and get some announcers that just completely buy in 100% and say, yeah, this is the national championship game. Do what UCF couldn't do. Just play your own game, claim your own championship, make T-shirts, hats, you name it, and get rid of this stupid 14 playoff.
Here's Ohio State's schedule so far this year. They have beaten Nebraska, bad football team. Penn State, bad football team. Rutgers, bad football team. Indiana, good football team. Michigan State, bad football team. And now they play Northwestern, which is an okay football team. The bottom line is this: the Big 10 stinks this year. It does. The teams that you would think are traditionally good, Penn State, Michigan State, some of those programs stink this year. And yet there's value put in beating those teams for Ohio State. That isn't true for Indiana. That wouldn't be true for Cincinnati. That wouldn't be true for anyone not a blue blood. This is where it's gone wrong, is people on that committee are determined to pick on perception, and I think ESPN has undue influence on the picking so that they can get the best ratings possible. The programs that traditionally poll the best ratings. But you can't tell me if Cincinnati was in there. If Cincinnati got to play Alabama in a semifinal, would it be a blowout? Probably. But people would watch it. He's exactly right. This has to go to 8 teams. Absolutely 100%. It has to be 8 teams. It has to be the Power 5 champions with a group of 5 champion in there, as long as they meet some standards. You have to be, you can't be the best team has 3 losses in some season. That doesn't work. But you get my point. Someone from that group of conferences has to be in the playoff. And then a couple at-larges to address the random, honestly, the SEC has 2 great teams, maybe in the same division. Maybe it happens again in the Big Ten. It won't happen in the Big 12 unless it's Oklahoma and Texas. That's the point. That's the problem. It shouldn't matter what your logo is. It should matter how good of a team you are. It shouldn't matter if you'll get more eyeballs for television or fewer. You should be on and in because of the merit of your resume. And they don't seem to care. Ohio State's resume is incomplete. They are unbeaten, and 4 games of them, of that 5 victories, were trash. And that doesn't matter because it's Ohio State. If Indiana had the same resume, was 5-0 with a win over Ohio State, I'm not sure they would be in, because now the 5 wins aren't enough to understand if Indiana's good. It's maddening. They've got to overthrow this system. They got to get it out of Bill Hancock's hands, who somehow ran the whatever that was, the Bowl Alliance. It became the Bowl whatever, and now he's in charge of the playoff. How? None of them have worked. This should be better, and it's not. And it's because of how they've managed it. Let's move on to 8 teams. And boy, someone put up that bracket of 16 teams, and I got to admit, that was a lot of tasty football. That was a lot of really good games, a lot of entertaining things. And you know what was left out of the mix too much was the bowl games. That's a problem? Screw them. Screw them. I don't care about their tradition when they sell the name of their bowl to someone else. I don't care. Everyone needs money. So can you imagine? Today's game is between the Kansas State Wildcats, brought to you by Champion Sportswear, and the Texas Longhorns. Dell. I mean, what are we doing here? It's not about tradition of bowls anymore. They crapped on their own tradition. Give us a playoff. And if bowls still want to exist, let them exist. But I'm done with the tradition and fanfare of bowl games. No, I'm out. When you move your bowls, change your bowls, revamp your bowls, cancel your bowls, it's not that important. It's really not anymore. Maybe the rose and the orange, if they went back to traditional settings, but you know what? That was another time. It was another time. I loved my 76 Camaro. It was awesome. But I wouldn't drive it today. And that's the way I feel about bowls.
There's only 15 bowls probably that exist today that deserve to be played every year. The other ones are no name, played in a soccer stadium between two group of 5 teams on a Tuesday afternoon at 3:30, played on ESPN2 in front of no fans. Mm-hmm. Like the pandemic this year isn't really going to affect those bowl games because fans weren't going to them anyway. They were made for TV. Like you said, the rose, the sugar, the cotton, the peach, the Alamo, the Holiday. Those are bowl games. The Outback Bowl, yeah, it's a sponsor, but that's one it's always been a good game for those opponents that, it's similar to the Alamo Bowl for the Big 12, the Outback Bowl is. So, there's a handful of bowl games that are cool. I would argue that the Pinstripe Bowl is kind of cool. But, there's only like 15 bowl games that are worth played.
I'm going to go ahead and disagree just a little bit here with what Fitz and you think about the playoff. I'm with you that Ohio State and the name on the front of the jersey is certainly, it's frustrating to see them get that special privilege, but you got to realize there's going to be controversy. There's going to be people upset no matter what, whether it's 2, 4, 8, 16. 32, however many teams are in, a playoff, there's always going to be that last team getting in and the first team that's left out. You look at March Madness, there's 68 teams in there, and there's always controversy when someone gets left out. So that problem is not going away.
The argument, we're not here arguing that there's going to be controversy. Yeah, there's always going to be a bubble. But the bubble right now, if you want to make the NCAA tournament argument, we're arguing if a team should be a 1 seed or a 2 seed, and the 2 seed should be left out based on their season. With a 14 playoff, you have 4 1 seeds, and the 5th ranked team in the country in basketball is going to be a 2 seed. It's insane that someone that would be a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament doesn't get the opportunity to play for a championship. So that's the problem, is that Ohio State isn't always, they don't deserve to be an automatic 1 seed in this mythical tournament that we've created. There's going to be a bubble, but the bubble shouldn't be between 4, 5, and 6. The bubble should be between 15, 16, 17, and 18, or at the very least, the top 10, 7, 8, 9, 10, that should be your bubble. We shouldn't, the 5th and 6th ranked team in the country are not bottom feeders by any means. They deserve to have a shot at a championship. So I disagree that that there's always going to be controversy. Sure, there's going to be controversy, but we're talking about between 4th and 5th. That is too close. The differences between a 4th place team and a 5th place team are not very different. There are no differences between them. One should not be out and one should be in. I just don't see it that way.
So college football, though, traditionally is not you lose a few games and you're okay. College football is every game matters. You lose a game and pretty much there goes your title hopes. It has to have that same intensity. Don't get me wrong.
That's not true.
K-State loses a game,
that's not true. But that's my problem is if you're Clemson, you get to lose a game.
Yeah,
if you're Baylor or TCU, even though you're a conference champion, you lost a game or you didn't win well enough. You didn't win enough. But Ohio State ran it up on someone, so they get in. This is crazy.
I agree with that. And I said that I think you were going with your dogs, but I'm totally with you that name on front of the jersey, it's super frustrating. But the culture of college football would be it'd be changed if you could lose 3 games and still go into some sort of playoff. So that's kind of the general point that I have.
How many teams in the top 10 lose 3 games in a year? It doesn't happen. There are so few games right now.
Okay, let's make it 2 games then.
Yeah.
If you lose 2 games, this is just my opinion, you don't deserve to have a chance to become the champion. You've lost twice. That's how college football is traditionally.
If you lose 2 regular season games, but you win your conference, like Oklahoma or Iowa State will, you'd have to win 3 in a row in the playoffs to be a champion.
Yeah.
I think that's earning it right there. If you win your major conference, you're in. If you're the best of the other conferences, you're in. And we'll have 2 spots for wiggle room. Maybe it's 2 teams. Maybe it's both Coastal Carolina and Cincinnati. Or maybe it's Notre Dame as a runner-up in the ACC, and I don't even know who else to pick from the SEC this year. It's just kind of been chaotic. The fact that Florida dropped 1 spot after losing at home to a team that has struggled all season is asinine. It is unforgivable and should be the end of the committee and how they select teams. You literally said it, Gills. It was about it being Florida, and everything else that happened didn't matter. If it had been someone else, if it had been a team like Indiana that gets into its last game and it's already assured a spot in the Big Ten championship, but they lose to Nebraska, they're dropping like a rock. But Florida isn't given that same harsh judgment. It's Florida. It's the SEC. And this year's even worse. The Big 12 is suffering this year because it played non-conference games. Iowa State is being penalized for playing a non-conference game that the SEC didn't do. Yeah. Now, Should they have won? Yeah. But the SEC didn't even put themselves out there to do that, let alone the Big Ten. Teams wanted to do that, and they wouldn't change the rules for that. But to get Ohio State in, yeah, they'll change those rules. Yeah, this has exposed a lot here. It made people really realize that it's about who you are, not what you are.
Next question from Contra Cat. Is missing a bowl really that bad with this team that was seemingly spent and rice paper thin?
I've been on the record. I didn't think they should go. You know, I didn't feel good about it even if they'd won their last game. But they were done. They were done. Physically, mentally, it just sucked. It was a painful ending. And adding another loss or going through more preparation, yeah. The only thing K-State did wrong here was in their press release, they should have noted that we're not sure we're prepared to play in a bowl, so we're going to back out of bowl contention so we don't cancel on them. But we will leave it open that we might play a game late because you can do that now. They could potentially schedule a game for December 30th against, let's pull up a Patsy out of the hat here, Nebraska. That's on the, that's acceptable this year. You can just schedule another game, which is why Zach wants Cincinnati and Coastal to back out of bowls and play each other. And I'd love it. But they should have said, we might still try that so you can keep practicing. Maybe they can, even though they haven't said it. I'm not sure. But yeah, no bowl. I'm fine. I'm good.
Yeah, and as much as I'd love to see them go to a bowl game and start a new streak, you're still a 4-6 team, and you're going to play UTSA in Dallas. Is there any benefit? Is there any benefit to beating UTSA for this program? I mean, no. I mean, other than snapping your losing streak, but I feel like the risks are greater than the benefits here. You don't want to end your season on a 6-game losing streak and have UTSA. I assume it would be their first ever bowl win. Maybe I'm wrong, but they haven't been a program for 10 years. I would not. I think it'd be too risky. I don't think that I would be comfortable seeing what a potential spread that between that game. Would K-State be favored by 3? I'd be worried. And just, yeah, as nice as it would be to go to a bowl game just to end the losing streak, I think that this is totally fine. Just shut it down, call it a year, let's start on 2021.
Yeah, Fitz, you've mentioned it, but you don't want to go be locked away in your hotel room when you're in Phoenix, Arizona or something like that. So K-State was actually good this, 8-2 or something. Go for a bowl game, but at this point, don't do it.
Yeah. The interesting thing is they said they were going to treat it like just a game.
Yeah.
So on the First Responders Bowl, which was the 26th, right? They would have flown in on Christmas Day and just spent the night, done a walkthrough, and played the game. Well, that's not even a bowl game at that point. I mean,
yeah. There's no point to it. And kind of getting back to the bowl tradition thing, is the First Responders Bowl really a bowl game that has all this tradition? Is that one that you'd want to even just go down for, the week before and have all these fun bowl activities? What are you doing in the First Responders Bowl in Dallas that's so cool? I mean, at least like the Liberty Bowl, there's stuff to do. They got the Peabody Hotel Ducks. I don't know what else they got, but they at least have something going for them. There's some sort of tradition.
Mediocre barbecue.
Mediocre barbecue. Ugh.
I think mediocre might have been a stretch. Ugh.
I guess Dallas barbecue would be better, but there's no, if you're not doing anything that's fun, the bowl trip's almost like a reward for these players. You had a tough, hard season. Here's one final game. Once it's over, go enjoy yourself. There's going to be no enjoying yourself after a bowl game. There's going to be no going out. You're going to be on a flight, 3 hours after your game on the way home. I assume. With the way COVID is and the way testing's gone, I feel like they wouldn't just totally give up on their protocols right after the game. So I think it would just be it's almost pointless at this point.
I saw someone complain about the 8-team playoff with this. Well, okay, so you get into the playoff, you're Cincinnati, and you go play Alabama, and you get smoked on Alabama's home field, because I assume the first 4 games would be home field advantage for the higher seed. They should be. Is that a good way to end your season in that kind of, without going to a bowl game and not having all the fanfare of getting into the Cotton Bowl or whatever? I think you probably are really underestimating the value and the prestige of being in the playoff. That's more than saying, hey, we went to the Cotton Bowl and we lost.
I mean,
we were in the playoff. We were in contention for a national title. Come to Cincinnati and play football. You can now play for a national title. You can be in the battle. It's legitimate. That's why they don't want to change the rules. That's it. That they've got the golden goose and they don't want to share it. They don't want to start losing recruits that can say, hey, I got this offer from Ohio State. I can go be a backup there, but I'll be a star at Cincinnati. I think I'll go there. Because that will happen if programs such as Cincinnati are in the discussion every year. There's an avenue to be in the playoff. And then fate's in your hands, not a committee's. They don't want to give that up. They don't want to open that door. They want it as it is, because why? If you want to play for a national title, you have to go to Alabama, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Clemson, maybe Notre Dame, possibly Texas if they can ever be back, and maybe a Pac-12 school, but probably only Oregon or USC. That's, you got Michigan, you got some other programs that will allow in, but if you want to play for a national title, there's probably only about a dozen schools. Pick your school.
Next question from K-Ned. How much more of a single-A to AAA minor league setup will one free transfer create? Will we see kids go FCS or G5 to get playing time with hopes of putting up numbers and transferring? Seems K-State might be stuck in the middle, gaining and losing players.
Maybe a little bit, but I don't see recruits coming out of high school and seeing their offer list and almost essentially sandbagging, I guess, saying, hey, I want to go develop for a couple years at some lower program and then hope that I can go transfer somewhere else. I think that high school kids are going to take the best option possible, that's presented to them coming out of high school. I don't think that they're going to look at it and say, hey, I'll go spend my time down at AA Wichita or wherever and hope to transfer to, make it on the Cubs or the Twins or whoever the next year. It's just, I think that what you're going to see more of is just, kids will end up where they end up. And if they have a good year, maybe they'll try finding a spot. But, I think Gene Taylor mentioned it yesterday in his press conference. Yeah, it's going to be risky these kids aren't necessarily going to have landing spots. So you better pick a place that you're going to be happy at and hope that you can be happy there, because, there's going to be a lot more people on the transfer market. There's going to be a lot less spots to end up at on a percentage wise with how many kids are in the market.
I think it's going to work both ways. I think you might eventually see kids go to Alabama, give it a shot, find out their third string, and then they're out. And then they'll play somewhere else. I think it'll all even out. It's going to take a little bit of chaos here at the start. It's going to take some evidence that kids that signed Power 5 and then transferred don't end up Power 5. K-State, of all the transfers, they've got one at Power 5, and it's Josh Youngblood at Rutgers. Am I wrong there? I mean, you got kids going to Louisiana, good program. Texas San Antonio, been a good program. But they're going to find out life's a lot different at the G5 than the P5. I mean, the G5, you're riding a bus a lot, and you might fly commercial once in a while, maybe, I don't know. But it's just a lot less bells and whistles to your program. And if that's what you want, every level's for someone different. I mean, if you're a football player in the Kansas Conference and you're playing at Sterling, McPherson, Bethany, you know what you are? You're a college football player. And if that's good for you, then that's your life. I mean, I'm a journalist that covers Kansas State. I don't cover Ohio State. I don't cover Texas or LSU or Alabama. Maybe that makes me less valuable to others, but this is what I want. So that can be the same thing for football players. You just got to understand what you're going to get. The second you step into that portal, it ain't going to take you to beautiful, incredible places unless you're a guy that has really overplayed your boundaries, a Bradley Moore, and clearly you can step up to Power 5 and be a second-team all-conference tight end.
Last question of the podcast is from Wildcat Pilot 88. For the signees that never got to take unofficial or official visits to the pandemic, do you think the NCAA will come up with some sort of makeup, like maybe one official visit in the spring to the school you signed with?
No, because most of those kids are going to be on campus anyway. Early enrollees. So
yeah, I mean, we're going to see more of that. Coach Snyder wasn't a big fan, kind of learned to accept it, but now, I mean, particularly in this situation, if I'm a high school kid and I have enough credits at December with what high school's like right now, oh, hell yeah, I'm out of there. You're going to miss prom. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to miss prom. Oh, boy, a mask at prom. You know, I mean, I'd be out of there. I think what we'll see is more kids leaving. They'll get there and realize this isn't the place for me. I couldn't have probably made the decision without stepping on a campus when I was that age. I'm a person that really goes off of feel, kind of the vibe. And boy, if I'd shown up at a place where I'd signed a letter of intent to play and I knew from the second my feet felt the ground at whatever school under me and I didn't feel right, I'd be in trouble. So I think we're going to see even more transfer out because of this, but it's just another weird element of this whole pandemic. But I don't think the NCAA will do that because even in the spring, we're not going to be far enough along. I mean, this vaccine isn't going to make a dent until we start getting it widely circulated, and you got to take 2 doses. It's just going to take a while. It'll take a while, but I think by next football season, we'll be in a better position maybe to have fans in a full schedule. Okay. That's it for the PowerCat Questions podcast. We appreciate you listening. Got a little worked up, but I got worked up because there were really, really good questions in this podcast. Great job. You guys have upped your game during the pandemic, and I think there's a lesson to be learned about that.
PowerCat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.
With BlueLink Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading BlueLink Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.